Hello, my name is Christopher Coker. I'm director of LSE IDEAS, which is the main foreign policy think tank of the London School of Economics. And it's a great pleasure for IDEAS to host the second Jinnah lecture. This is a series which is devoted to looking at Pakistan and its place in the region and in the world. And we have generous financial support from Dr. Saqib Qureshi, who is an or I should say an alumnus of LSE. The lecture today is on China-Pakistan economic corridor. The topic was certainly topical in the days in which we had great confidence in globalization, and we talked a lot about the Great Belt and Road Initiative and various other things like that. But it's even more topical, I think, now, particularly from this part of the world, because of the geopolitical context, which has been transformed to some extent by the invasion of Ukraine, but also the rise before that event of new theaters of competition, particularly competition between the great powers, such as the Indo-Pacific region. To address this subject, we have our Jinnah Fellow, Dr. Seema Khan. Seema is a freelance writer who focuses on power politics and security issues. She's worked with the government of Pakistan for over 20 years and has represented Pakistan in international trade negotiations. Interestingly, she combines expertise in trade matters with expertise in regional security and power politics. I should also add she's also a member of the Australia-Pakistan Strategic Forum. So we're delighted to have Dr. Khan with us this afternoon, or this morning if you're beaming in from Pakistan, this afternoon if you happen to be in the United Kingdom. Dr. Khan will speak for about 45 minutes, after which I will, as chair, ask some questions before opening to the audience. So please post your questions up in the Q&A box as they come to you. So without further ado, I will ask Dr. Khan to address us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christopher. So I have actually a presentation. Is it there? Okay, thank you. Just let me quickly settle and then I'll start. Yeah, okay. So Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Before I formally commence, I would like to take this great opportunity to express my gratitude. First and foremost, this is for Professor Christopher Coker, whose email's notification on November 10 last year. It actually elevated my status from a mere researcher to a research fellow at my dream institution, London School of Economics. Trust me, I read that email quite a few times just to comprehend the meanings. I was in kind of awe and disbelief that what my mind was translating was really written in the email. It was a different experience, I must say. I want to thank Dr. Saqib Qureshi, whose generous funding made this fellowship even more attractive and appealing. I also want to express my gratitude to Dave, Dr. Amelia, and the LSE IDEAS team, whose immaculate collaboration made this long-distance project possible and flawless. Let me say that it is an absolute honor and privilege for me to be here and to share my perspective on a matter that is extremely important to Pakistan and China, and how it has direct or indirect impact on regional and global politics. I'm hoping to be able to put forth my argument in a clearer manner. Now, coming back to the topic of today's presentation, that is how the building of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or the CPEC, has turned the region into a flashpoint due to power tussle between big powers and adversely affecting Pakistan's security. So before I actually go into discussing about making a critique on CPEC, it is essential to understand why China has planned to invest in a country which is known for its political instability, financial problems, corruption, and most importantly, military interventions. What made this country, Pakistan, so important for China? It's not a cliche, but it is because of its strategic location. The question arises why China strategized to shift its trade routes from its eastern borders to western borders. The reason, as you can see in the map, the reason is a Chinese fear of blockade of Strait of Malacca, which is one of the busiest trade routes and an entry and exit point for Chinese trade. China fears that in case of any confrontation with the USA can ally the smaller states or peripheral states there, like Singapore, Philippines, South Korea, in the South China Sea, and can block the trade route. The Strait of Malacca lies at a strategic position between Sumatra Islands and the Malay Peninsula and has Singapore to its east. This narrow stretch of water could be easily blocked and scuttle almost 80% of its trade, and China shares the largest part of it. It was back in 2003 when the then Chinese president, Hu Jintao, preempted Malacca dilemma, and this term came into public domain. It is a term that represents the potential factors or potential hurdles that could hinder China's economic development and through the choking oil imports. In search of alternate routes, the Chinese policy makers in Beijing came up with a strategy of this gigantic investment project that could provide them with alternate routes for their exportable products and secured an uninterrupted fuel supply. One such project under this gigantic investment is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in Pakistan, which mainly focuses on importing oil through the Gwadar port, linking it with Central Asian republics, Europe, Middle East, Africa, with a combination of land and sea routes. So what is this gigantic project? Most of you already know about it, and I will not be taking much of the time in explaining it. However, it is essential to briefly touch upon this subject to understand the reason for building the CPEC and its importance for China and Pakistan. China's transition from only large economy to strategically and militarily strong state with an ambition to expand its area of influence by adopting BRI as a connectivity tool is indeed a smart strategy. It allows it to attain a permanent ingress or road into Eurasia region and dominant presence in its sea-based lines of supply. To make it a reality, China has engaged more than 60 countries with a population of 4.4 billion people, building 6 economic corridors, connecting China with other economies, and largely smaller economies. Inevitably, this has provided China a greater role both in regional and global economic and strategic affairs, thus transforming it into an amphibious power, as you can see in this map, which has its ingress both in water and land. Under BRI, China has connected major trading routes through economic corridors, which itself is a unique idea. These economic corridors are taken as a vehicle for sub-regional economic development. And it's such a powerful concept that links industrial economic clusters around important transport corridors with production networks. The American theorist previously terms this connectivity as string of pearls, and the term aptly describes the string that China has woven or created within Indian Ocean rim. China's pursuit of power, however, has alerted the regional and global actors, specifically in relation to Pakistan, India, and the USA, and is seen as a challenge to the existing international political order. Whenever otherwise there is a dual, as Professor Christopher has in his intros said about the globalization, whenever there is a development project or a connectivity project, it should have been welcomed. However, in this scenario, it's likely a transition of power from west to east, where USA is enjoying the sole supremacy as of now in global political, military, and strategic affairs, and there is a fear of losing it. On the other hand, India in the region is also aspiring for a larger role, for a major role rather, and that's where the whole tension or stress is arising. So let's talk about the actual topic of this presentation or the main theme of it, what it is. This is CPEC is a project where China and Pakistan are obviously two partners, and China is the investor. The entire idea of the corridor revolves around the confluence of geoeconomics and geopolitics. It is not only an economic project per se, it aims to strategically prioritize economic, political, and strategic options for more influential role in regional and global affairs. Pakistan has traditionally been aligned with making agreements which were based on strategic or military alliances, like it was with USA. But this is, I can't say the first time, but like it's this huge project which has economics or geoeconomics on the priority, and our former Prime Minister Imran Khan and the national security advisors in their foreign meetings and in their foreign policy narrative, they have always talked about it, that they have prioritizing or preferring geoeconomics more than strategic alliances. Even a naive observer of global events now can understand that new world order, new realignments in interstate relationships are emerging and or taking place, with China attaining a prominent position. Pakistan is clearly tilting towards Eastern camp with China in the lead. And the tilt is evident by signing this agreement, which is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which definitely is going to provide Pakistan with enormous opportunities to uplift its dilapidated economic condition and offering China with another eye or another opening in the Indian Ocean region, which was earlier just on the western side. And if the Gwadar port is fully functional, it can have, and as what you can say, second opening in the westward side of the Indian Ocean region. Pakistan is obviously shifting, as I've told earlier, that it's from geostrategic consideration to geoeconomic cooperation, focusing on strong relationship with major regional actors. Pakistan, with a population of 220 million, and is the second most populous Muslim majority country in the world. It shares borders with India, China, Afghanistan, and Iran, which are all important players to the stability of the region and the world. Just mentioning Afghanistan and Iran, I'm just trying to highlight where Pakistan is located. As a nuclear country, Pakistan's influence should not be underestimated. Or maybe this is the reason Pakistan is always at the spotlight. In view of Pakistan's position and China's aspiration vis-a-vis America and India's contention, the corridors has pushed the entire region into the spotlight of geopolitics. So what is CPEC? I mean, how does it look like? The CPEC is a 3,000-kilometer long freight connectivity route consisting of highways, railways, infrastructure, energy projects, special economic zone, and all supply lines. CPEC is largely termed as a BRI's flagship project with an immense economic potential and geopolitical significance. The CPEC is one of the connecting dots in BRI's string, which connects the underdeveloped Western Chinese province, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, traversing through Pakistan from north to south at the Gwadar port and beyond. This project will start from Kashgar in western China and will enter Pakistan through Punjab Pass and run through the whole parts of Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces, and Gilgit-Baltistan. And in the end, it just entered in from Gwadar to Arabian Sea. It significantly cuts down the cost, distance, and time involved in trade activity to and from China, and also for Pakistan, obviously. So let me briefly go through the CPEC project and what it promises to bring about. The CPEC offers Pakistan with abundant economic opportunities to ease out its financial distress, which is the basic issue with Pakistan, and provides China with another opening in the Indian Ocean region through the Gwadar port. It promises to modernize Pakistan's infrastructure and improve its connectivity within the region and beyond. The large influx of investment, which is more than 65 billion, will work as a strong economic incentive for Pakistan's government and social sectors to improve the business environment and enhance commercial attractiveness for more foreign investments, which will not only benefit Chinese investors, but also it will benefit other foreign investors in Pakistan and all kind of attraction, including the United States. Industrialization in Pakistan will also help to create jobs for the country's large underemployed population, turning a social and fiscal burden into an economic and developmental driver. The CPEC will not only improve people's living standards, but it will improve the state-society connect and can mend Pakistan's socio-political fault lines. Economic uplift will engage people in constructive activities through numerous employable opportunities and thus minimizes the risk of their inclination towards paid destructive activities like extremism and militancy. Here I mean that CPEC will create more private sector opportunities and offer a realistic pathway out of poverty for Pakistan's people, especially those from extremely poor areas like Balochistan, KP, and Gilgit-Baltistan, where the unemployed otherwise may be tempted to fight as mercenaries for TTP, ISIS, Taliban, separatist organization, criminal cartels, or smugglers. CPEC can prove to be a catalyst in regional connectivity, especially South Asia. The core vision of CPEC is to improve infrastructure and to facilitate interconnectivity. The project is expected to connect China, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asian countries together, integrating a market of 2 billion people and stabilizing the region. CPEC can empower South Asia to enjoy the full benefits of region-wide trade, stretching from Iran to China. However, despite all these benefits or all these good promises, CPEC is largely seen as a Chinese strategy to assert itself in the international political arena, using Pakistan as its peripheral allied state. So the major point of contention in the whole CPEC is the port that is located at the southern tip of Balochistan, which has greatly impacted the geopolitics. If CPEC is the flagship project of the BRI, the Gwadar port is the jewel in the CPEC's crown and is viewed more with strategic lens than its economic significance and has remained the center of strongest opposition both at home and abroad. Musharraf has envisioned the significance of Gwadar back in 2000 when his government signed an agreement with Chinese company for the development of Gwadar port. He referred this region into a funnel, and we can see in the map that it is a funnel-like structure. On the top of it, it's Central Asia and also China's western region. And when it goes down through Afghanistan and Pakistan, the end of the funnel is Gwadar port. So this funnel, futuristically, is the economic funnel of the whole region. I must say that I must commend Musharraf's futuristic and foresightedness when he identified this Gwadar port as one of the promising ports, despite the fact that it's still not been completed yet. It is strongly believed in Pakistan that China's investment for trade corridor with special attention to the Gwadar port will put Pakistan on economic trajectory and further strengthen strategic relationship between the two partners. But it is the strategic location of port wherein the competing and conflicting interests of regional and global actors are playing out against each other. So the map is self-evident, or maybe it can show you the what are the issues and what is happening there. Dubai is there. The contention is not only India with India or with America, but Dubai, Oman, Muscat, and Iran. They are all losing their, you can say, prominence there if Gwadar port is functional. So what is Gwadar port and how does it look like? It's a small fishing area located at the mouth of the Arabian Sea and just 460 kilometers away from Karachi. The port provides both China and Pakistan with a strategic footing in the Indian Ocean. Its proximity to the Strait of Hormuz, as we can see in the previous slide. So its proximity with the Strait of Hormuz, one of the busiest trade routes, with 40% of oil trade passing through it, makes it very strategically very important to regional and global actors. Its significance stems from its geographic location, which is at the crossroads of international trade routes connecting Asia to Europe and Africa. Via this shortest way, Gwadar port serves as a hawk eye for Pakistan military forces, allowing continuous maritime traffic surveillance. As I've said earlier, that it is providing China not only an alternate trade route, but also expand its sphere of influence through its strategic presence at the crossroads of Europe, Central Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Gwadar, with its deep sea harbor, can hold the largest motherships, which is a prominent feature of any seaport and can outperform the Chabahar significance and the other adjacent ports like in Dubai, Muscat, and Qatar. Owing to its location, Gwadar port has achieved global prominence but has become a geopolitical pivot also. And besides providing another eye to monitor maritime traffic or sea lines of communication in the western side of Indian Ocean to China and Pakistan, it also ensures the security of energy supply, a key feature in power politics. So despite all these benefits and rosy pictures one can imagine to have after the completion of the CPEC, there are still many slips between the cup and the lips. Let us now discuss the challenges that Pakistan is facing while heading towards the second phase of CPEC. The internal security has become the formidable task, particularly in Balochistan, the home of the Gwadar port. Both China and Pakistan are cognizant of the external and internal apprehensions about the CPEC and making every possible effort to engage all actors positively. It's a project of more than 60 billion and it's running behind its schedule due to these internal conflicts and internal security challenges. The delayed decision making at the government end, from Pakistani government end, political instability and poor governance. It is because of this that a dozen of projects worth up to $2 billion remain unfinished in Gwadar, including water supply and electricity generation. Baloch resistance is on the top when it comes to dissect the internal fault lines in Pakistan. Baloch are of the view that they are internally colonized. There is a strong resistance against the manpower, skilled manpower coming from other provinces, specifically from Punjab, and in construction of different projects under the CPEC. They apprehend the Baloch. They think that they'll be minoritized after the influx of Punjabi labor there. So they just not only, you can say, resent this, but they are also often target and kill them. To contain state ingress in Balochistan and particularly in Gwadar, negligence of central government in Balochistan, role of Sardars, tribal culture, and active Baloch separatist militants who have carried out several attacks on Chinese installations on the Baloch separatist organization like BLA, BRA, and Baloch Students Organization, BSO, which are actively engaged in attacking state infrastructure, innocent civilians, and law enforcement agencies. These are few of the reasons which are still delaying the completion of the task. Absence of political stability, where peace, a better law and order situation throughout the Pakistan, and specifically in the province of Balochistan, are the major hurdles in the successful execution of CPEC projects and to reap the envisioned benefits or its fate. I mean, I fear that if nothing concrete is being taken and not serious effort is being put, its fate could be the IPI Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline or TAPI pipeline. The intense environment to curtail Chinese, why it is happening actually, why there is so much internal conflicts. It's not that I'm exempting or exonerating Pakistani domestic problems or Pakistani government, but there is the connectivity of internal issues with external factors. I'll be discussing it in a while. The intense environment to curtail its Chinese influence and its imminent hold on the region through the CPEC has embroiled Balochistan in a rash of violence in a proxy battleground. Balochistan has become a battleground where all forces are pitched against one another due to its underlying fault lines. To resolve internal issues and Pakistan's desire for successful completion of this mega project, it is imperative to earn support of local communities. While analyzing the reservations of local people and their dissatisfaction on government's policies, multiple terrorist attacks inarguably explain their discontentment and distrust on the government as well as their on Chinese, you can say, investor. Issues like the acquisition of land and property is also a matter of concern and frustration among Baloch, especially the people who are living in Gwadar. Although many locals have voluntarily sold their land for the project much before the initiation of the CPEC Gwadar port, the modern Gwadar port, in order to welcome the development, but after the initiation of developmental projects and construction of other buildings, and the influx of other manpower and Chinese people, the value of the property skyrocketed. And then this added to their complex. They thought that they have been marginalized and they have been deceived there, and they were being paid less than what actually they should have been. So the influx of skilled labor from China and other parts of Pakistan has increased their fears and apprehensions. Another area of concern is the displacement of local fishermen, damage to centuries-old coastal habitat. Almost 70% of the population which is living on this coastal line of Balochistan, especially in Gwadar, is associated with fishing, but are swiftly losing access to coastal areas due to its coverage under the proposed Gwadar smart port city. They lack the financial means to invest in cutting-edge technologies, which China has, to maximize their potential and improve their standard of living. So their exclusion from the fruition of the project has become the major reason for resentment, which needs to be addressed on priority basis. People's dissatisfaction, concern, and their lack of required skill have restrained local participation in the developmental projects and endangered their livelihood and sustenance on fishing. Their increasing fears have forced them to protest several times, and it was very much highlighted in the international media under the banner of Give Rights to Gwadar. Another issue is the securitization of the areas included in CPEC projects in the entire country, and particularly in Balochistan. Due to heavy presence of law enforcement agencies, the mobility is restricted, especially near the Jinnah naval base, and also in Gwadar due to the ongoing developmental projects. I must say this is essential, and it is everywhere. Whenever there is a project going on, we do provide security. But in case of Balochistan or in case of Pakistan, this is very much resented, or you can say it is always being contested. The law enforcement agencies in Balochistan, particularly the Frontier Corps, have a special mandate to provide security to the workforce working on the CPEC, and it is accompanying projects, as well as to protect the project from terrorist threats. I can't say that they were very often, but there are quite a few attacks on the installation, on state installation and Chinese built infrastructure. The Pakistan Army has therefore deployed a special security division to provide security for CPEC projects in the hinterlands, while the Pakistan's Navy, there is a special force protection battalion which guards the Gwadar port and Chinese workers. Cutting short, that political instability and inconsistent political decisions are not only delaying the projects other than these internal issues, security issues, but also adding to frustration of the locals as well as the investor. What happened in the last few weeks in Pakistan is a worrisome issue, and I'm sure that the Chinese government is closely monitoring the recent political developments in Pakistan. There is I can't say that there is, it's true, but there is a voice that CPEC authority has been shut down, and there is some delays imminent after the current government's inclination towards America. So it's going to be very political. So I'm not going to talk about the politics here. So what exactly, linking internal challenges which I have discussed just now, what are the external factors? What are the external issues which are impeding or stopping this early completion of the CPEC? One quick conclusion I can come up with after reading so much literature and analyzing or observing is the China containment policy in the region, which is best possible by turning this region into flashpoint, especially Pakistan, an unstable Pakistan, and a Steve Pakistan can serve the purpose, and of course China will We can't stop China in expanding, but China, of course, will slow down. CPEC is perceived as one of the Chinese extension and strategic manifestation vis-a-vis the USA and regional emerging power India. So that's the basic, the whole crux, the whole issue is revolving around this basic point. China's economic rise has not only bolstered Chinese prowess in international political and strategic matters, but also has shaken the status quo. So the existing power paradigm wherein the USA is enjoying the superpower or solo superpower status, it's a strongly resisting this Chinese expansionist desire or maybe not ready to share that supremacy. So Washington sees BRI as Chinese ambitious expansionist strategy as a quid pro quo against US extended outposts and pressure points on China from the east, south, and west. And I was reading one article today about this, that why US sees China as an expansionist country or expansionist force, whereas I'm saying that China is exerting extra pressure on Taiwan, whereas we can see and we observe that there is evidence, like there are evidences that US is present everywhere around China. So it is beyond doubt that China's exponential growth has raised its status in the international political arena, and China has become an economic giant that could potentially surpass the United States. Therefore, one must not be surprised to see necessary steps in American policy which are based on strategic handling of Beijing. So it's the strategic handling of Beijing, which is turning Pakistan into a hotspot. I don't know what can I say. It's always unstable. So smaller states like Pakistan, Djibouti, and Sri Lanka are perceived as China's partners, helping it to fulfill its strategic goals. And we have just witnessed what has happened in Sri Lanka. The transition of power in favor of China is strongly contested and confronted. As a student of IR, we all know that power transition inarguably has always brought conflicts and tensions. So I don't see these tensions to go down, and they can increase. They can be intense. Not there will be nothing is going to slow down here. The series of conflicts can be seen in the area around, especially in Balochistan, wherein low-level militant activities have never stopped since 2000, when Musharraf announced the mega development projects there. Strong states in their pursuit for a powerful, dominating, and authoritative role impact international politics in a way that transcend local power balances. And we can see these happening in Pakistan, especially in Balochistan. The big power, they do not fight each other. China and America, I don't think so they are going to have a direct fight, but in conventional manner. But rather they orchestrate a scenario that disturbs the local power balance, either through dissenters, like in Pakistan and Balochistan, separatists, or a third state, India, which has involved in so many matters. We have direct involvement in Balochistan. The entire CPEC, and especially the Gwadar port, is a place where the interests of many international strong actors have either converged or diverged. The latter proposition has impacted Pakistan's internal security paradigm. There is a conflictual competition in this region that hosts two emerging economies, India and China. They both are aspiring for more powerful role, both in region and global affairs, and therefore ambitiously seeking and expanding their area of influence. If China is investing in Gwadar, India is investing in Chabahar in Iran. Delhi perceives Beijing as enhancing Islam's conventional military and missile and nuclear capabilities and providing it a cover or support in such international institutions as UN Security Council and Financial Action Task Force. So on the contrary, USA, India, and other allied countries have not allowed to move Pakistan's name from grey list to white list, despite its fulfillment of almost 27 out of 30 checklists. So it's like a kind of competition going on there. If China is supporting Pakistan, then the USA is supporting India, and they're countering China. They're just countering Pakistan to contain China. So we see different alliances and regional blocs like AUKUS and Quad with a top agenda of containing China. In their effort to curtail China, and countries like India and the USA have become strategic allies. which they never were earlier. It was always Pakistan used to be one, the non-NATO ally. And this has been like it's in context of competition with China, in which officials and analysts have envisioned India as a geopolitical counterbalance, economic alternative, or democratic contrast to China. This view has contributed to the last few US administration, including the current Biden administration, and seeing India's rise to be in US interest and worth supporting. So just ending my presentation with this, what China containment policy and where India is coming here, like there is direct confrontation, implied confrontation between USA and China, but actually functional in Pakistan is India, where to counterbalance the impact of Gwadar, India has funded Iranian port in Chabahar, which is just 80 miles away from Gwadar port. A strong India can diminish Chinese scope in the region by creating security situation in Pakistan, and that's why America is pushing hard to just equip India with all many tools that can counter and contain China. The basic objective, I can't say the basic objective, but like the foremost foreign policy tool in terms of containing China is grappling with Pakistan. It actually satisfies India's settling aspiration or maybe desire to settle its score with Pakistan. We have seen training of militants in Afghanistan, medical treatment of separatists in Indian hospitals, arrest of Kulbhushan Yadav, a serving Indian naval officer who was being arrested from Chemad border between Iran and Pakistan, Iran and Balochistan. So, and then his subsequent confession. So, where he said that he was mandated or he was his mission was to sabotage CPEC projects. So, like there is a long list of Indian intervention in Balochistan, direct intervention, and to which his Indian Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly acknowledged and claimed that India will not be reluctant to repeat Bangladesh experience in Balochistan if needed. And they have not only Modi but other ministers of his government have also acknowledged that they were fully involved in secession of Bangladesh. So India has been using Afghan soil by sheltering militant elements and allowing their proliferation around and across the border. And we are taking it as a transit corridor, and militants were like what you can say, the transportation or maybe the movement of militants from and to Afghanistan from this border is very frequent. And Pakistan is being targeted always, and it was never the other way around. However, after the withdrawal of NATO forces from Afghanistan and Taliban coming into power, both India and USA have to rescind from their position, which is pulling Pakistan more into vortex of power politics, and it is evident, it's becoming very clear nowadays. All four actors are actively seeking more influential and powerful role in Indian Ocean region to safeguard their economic, strategic, and security interests. The emerging prominence and the potential energy corridor have forced the competitors to create a situation that can diminish the potential gains from the CPEC and its signature project. The convergence, I don't think, I'm very, sometimes, I must say that it's a very good project, but then there have to be a very inclusive approach considering the socio-economic aspects and thwart the threat of militancy and exploitation of locals in the hands of non-state actors. But I must say that CPEC's successful completion can impress other partners across the globe, and China can showcase this project in the entire BRI, it's gigantic strategy, which you can say initiative, but in view of power tussle between China and the USA for a dominant position in global affairs, this seems to be a far cry. Not ignoring India's role, which is a strategic ally of the USA and an aspirant of regional lead role and its traditional rivalry with Pakistan. I'm not expecting any peaceful place or peaceful you can say situation here. I think it's going to be more tense or maybe more violence is imminent or is in the picture in near future. And that's it. And thank you so much for this. I conclude my part of presentation. These are a few of the references which I've used, and thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Coker.
Thank you very much, Seema. Can we, yes, remove the slides so that we can see them fully? Thank you so much, and it's a very sobering, and I would say very realistic, I think, analysis of the situation. I have a few questions, and a few questions have also come in. And can I perhaps start where I started my own introduction with things have changed in the last couple of months in our part of the world, not necessarily in your part of the world, but something which has definitely come into greater prominence is the new alignment, not so new, between China and Russia. And it looks as though the Chinese are sticking by that alignment and in fact will take it further, as they said earlier in the year. What does this mean for Pakistan, this alignment, but growing alignment between China and Russia?
If I'm the one to advise Pakistani government, I would rather for the regional alignment. I would rather go for the regional integration. But then it is the political government which has to decide, which is sitting there. The former prime minister was more inclined towards regional integration. In his like maybe the ouster was because of his last trip to Russia, on the face of it, it's not the case though. But that's why, like, I mean, before when I joined this project as a fellowship, the situation was different, and I was quite hopeful about this CPEC project and its successful completion. But during these 3 months period, the whole scenario has changed. I don't know what has happened in the background. Is it successful diplomacy or a successful push of American regime or American policymakers, or to be precise, CIA, that has actually pulled Pakistan, is pulling out of that Asian regional bloc to back to Western blocs. So it's not very clear now. It's blurry. It's very blurry. If it is to me, I would prefer a regional bloc. It's not with China or with Russia. It has to be regional because in this region, more than half of the population lives. And I'm the one who's an advocate of having very good relationship with India also. I would be going, if I have to be, like if I'm asked, I'll go with India. I have a good relationship with India. I'll go with the trade. Because that's the point. I mean, for us, EU is one of the model projects or model, you can say, phenomena where the whole Europe has emerged together. I mean, few of the strong economies have taken the smaller economies with them, and then it's a good model for me. And I'm more of a regional connectivity person, so I would rather go for the region. But I don't know what will happen. So that's why my last slide was not this, what I made at the last point, that it seems to be now, if it is going to happen, and if it is, we will tilt towards West again, towards America. I don't think so China would be keen to invest more and to go for the completion of this project.
We'll get back to the corridor in just a second, but since you mentioned the former Prime Minister, Imran Khan's decision to distance himself from the West on Ukraine, would you, since you draw this distinction between geoeconomics and geopolitics, would you suggest that he wasn't willing to play the Western geopolitical game, was much more interested in geoeconomic realities for Pakistan in the region? Or do you think that that distinction is not a particularly useful or valid one?
You know, over the last 2 months, these last 8 weeks have changed my mind. And I should say that if I was the one, I would go with Indian foreign policy, which was always non-aligned, and they have like kept them isolated from these kind of alliances, whereas Pakistan was being trapped in Afghan war, and then afterwards the war on terror. And to be very crude language, if I may speak here at this platform, Pakistan was used, misused, and abused by America in the whole scenario. So, I mean, if I would definitely go with Imran Khan's, you can say, his policy for geoeconomics instead of geostrategic. We, with the people of Pakistan, we need employment, we need food security, we need more jobs, we need a sustenance, rather than having military ties and going into the wars or going into the tensions or going into some conflicts which are not ours. We do not have any conflict with Ukraine or with Russia. Why should we be allying, or why should we siding for one policy or another? And India has smartly abstained. It was India also abstained from voting against Russia in UN, and then now India has signed all these agreements with Russia for the cheaper oil and the wheat. So I mean, we should all envy India. India has emerged really well, and but I'm still. It's the time will be telling us, or maybe the history. We will see it in a few months, or maybe a few weeks. What would China do? The China's reaction is still. It's not very you can say we can't see it. It's not. It has not come to the light, and we know that Dragon's policy. It's always very discreet. I'm just waiting for their reaction or what they are going to say. What Chinese policymakers have to make up their stance in this whole Ukraine and Russia issue. I mean, I'm a no war person. I don't like wars. It has happened in Afghan. I mean, we were being dragged in Afghan war, and what we had afterwards, Kalashnikov, heroin culture, and the refugees. No country has accommodated these many refugees. And what about this war on terror? There was no person, no Pakistani guy involved in 9/11, but then we were being dragged and we were being pulled towards that. And although I said in one of the slides that Musharraf was very smart and very foresighted person who envisioned Gwadar port as a very good project, but then I must say Musharraf was again very bad in this decision making while he decided to go with this war. He could have abstained. India has abstained. Why should we be there? And now India is smartly aligned with America when it needs the nuclear technology. All these technologies India is having, and so I must appreciate India's foreign policy. I must appreciate, and it's a stable, consistent policy. It's not going here and there, not like Pakistan. It's going here and there. We were with China, we were with America, and then we were with China, and then we are now again going back to the West. So, yeah, there is inconsistency, and that's the issue, which is worrisome.
Let me just ask you also. I mean, do you think China can be trusted any more than the United States? I mean, the relationship which Pakistan has had with the United States has its up and downs, and it was pretty brutal and unpleasant immediately after 9/11, and it's also not very healthy at the moment. Do you think China is any more to be trusted? And what about the BRI and the whole question of debt entrapment and Sri Lanka's problems at the moment, financial problems at the moment? Is there a kind of reconsideration of not getting too close, not getting too involved on these projects, waiting to see where they're going? We have a separate question on the actual efficacy of BRI, which we can come to, but I'm thinking more of the politics rather than the economics at the moment.
Exactly, it's more politics. I mean, I always see CPEC as more of a strategic project instead of economic. Of course, it's going to be, even if it gives being very realistic in its analysis, I always say even if it gives 30 to 40% of its promised outcome, it will be good, much like it can change Pakistan, it can transform Pakistan into an economic activity hub. I can't see as of now, while sitting in 2022, that it can give you 100% result. But while you're saying that China can be trusted, China should be trusted. China was with Pakistan always. It was, being Pakistani, I'm telling you, it was America who has ditched us always, be it in 71, be it in 65, be it in year 2000, be it in year 2001, or in 79 to that 10 or 11 years long war. We have been portrayed as a country which was training Mujahideen, but who was funding us and who wanted us to do it? It was America's policy. It was never Pakistan's policy, and it was not in Pakistan interest. And it was always the military dictator in you can say in the bid to gain that legitimacy and prolong the rules there. It was Musharraf and Ziaul Haq who have said yes boss to America. So they were the yes boss people, and we, the people of Pakistan, we suffered. So I won't be saying that. I have any distrust with China. No, I don't have. It's not I'm advocating China. China has its own strategic preferences. Of course, China is not like giving us something as a free lunch. There's no free lunch. They have their strategic, definitely preferences and their strategic visions. But Pakistan is getting benefit out of it. So there's nothing bad. It should be win-win situation. And when we are talking about the debt trap, I'm not. I haven't studied Sri Lanka, to be very honest. So I don't know. I can't comment on it. There is some issue, and the issue with all smaller countries like us, like Pakistan, and then Sri Lanka, the dynasty politics, and then the corruption. And I have more than one time I've said this in my presentation. Also, it's the bad governance. I was part of the government for 20 years, so I know. The bad governance and delayed activism, delayed decisions, and then disconnect of the legislature and the executive, and the disconnect from the poor masses. It's the basic issue. We cannot blame this on the investor. Pakistan, about the debt thing, since I'm not the economist, so I don't know the figures, but as a qualitative approach, qualitative analysis, if I can make, it's most of the international organization, Pakistan owe to them, not to China much of it. It's the World Bank, it's the IMF, it's the ADB. So it's more of the organization who are lending money to Pakistan. And as of now, while we are talking, Pakistan is in negotiation with the IMF for more loan. So debt trap, Chinese debt trap, that's a phrase or that's a terminology being used often, but this is not the case with Pakistan. Although I'm not an economist and I'm not good at figures, but like a rough idea or maybe a guess, I can say that it's more the international organization that Pakistan owes to, not to China. And more, sorry. Yep. Cut you down. I was expecting this question, so I quickly can tell you that. So yeah, there are four different types of financing instruments in CPEC. The first type is called investment, where the Chinese firms are undertaking the infrastructure projects, and they have borrowed commercial loans with the interest rate between 4 to 5%. The second category is called concessional loans, which are given to the government of Pakistan at an interest rate of 2 to 2.5%, with a maturity period of 25 to 30 years. The third category is interest-free loans, which constitute a very small portion, and it has zero interest. The last category is grants, which are aimed at improving state society capacity, and of course, it's not a lot. So again, I'm telling you, I'm not an economist and I'm very bad in numbers. So, but then the rough idea is that no, I won't. If it is me, you're asking me, I do not have any distrust on China. But it's not that I'm saying that China is a very good person, a good country, and very like we have a lovey-dovey relationship with that country. But the thing is, they have their own strategic preferences, and Pakistan should decide and go for an option which is a good benefit or advantageous to Pakistan.
Very good. Now, one question that came in was about putting to one side the regional impact of the economic corridor. What is the impact going to be or has been on the ground? has it or will it make any significant difference, I suppose, to the lives of ordinary people?
It has. I mean, it's not. I can't say that it's if it comes to the percentage, how much it has been complete. The phase one is almost completed. Road connectivity is great. From if you are going from Karachi to Gwadar, the Makran coastal highways all built, and the whole journey. If you have been to Pakistan, I don't know. So it's 7 to 8 hours straight drive, as if we are traveling from Melbourne to Sydney, and it's a very good road. So the road connectivity, all the motorways and the highways are almost, if I can say, 95% are complete. Then there are 10 water reservoirs, the dams, which we say. The work has already, on most of the, on 3 of the dams, the work has already started and it's underway. And 2 of them are in the feasibility stage, and 3 are like just about to start. So work has been started on most of the infrastructure projects, and then the energy projects. Although nowadays there is it's what you can say, load shedding. I don't know what you say, but it's a very common term used in Pakistan when there is a gap between the supply and the demand of electricity. So yeah, but then again, I'm saying in terms of employability, when I was researching, I asked this question to one of my researchers, and he responded to me very well. And I think I should mention his example, and you can understand that if one small road is being constructed, like just 1 kilometer patch, for example, there would be a small hawker would be there selling the food. So the people there who are building are actually involved, the labor involved in building that road are employed. And then the person who has this small stall there, or maybe selling that food for them, again got the employment, and that person is buying something from the back end. So the whole chain, I mean, I don't even know how to describe, because again, I'm not an economist, so I can't describe it in a better way. But then yes, on the ground, it's not, I can't say it's everything is so good, so rosy, but yes, there is, we can see, it's not on, the delay is not because of China, I must admit, because of our political instability and the poor governance issues, which are actually inhibiting it within Pakistan, and of course the security issues, what we are facing right now.
Thank you. Can I put 2 questions together, 2 separate ones? They're both about India. So how does the economic corridor impact on Indo-Pakistani relations? You've already said something about that, but could you go a little deeper into that? I mean, and perhaps just explain what India's perception of this corridor is, India's perception of the geoeconomics that you've been talking about. And the second question is, will India join the corridor project, or will it join the Great Belt Road Initiative? What's your view on that?
Should join. India should join. Although India is reluctant to join, India has all many reservations and observation. It's again, it's power politics, and where India wants to, you can say, is also aspiring for a leading role in the region, and it's the China containment policy. So when I said that India has one of a very good foreign policy as compared to Pakistan, but in here, India is reluctant. Maybe I don't know what Indian policymakers are being controlled or maybe contained by American policy or the Western bloc not to go with this, but I hope they will join it, because the regional uplift, it's more than it's a region of more than 3 billion people. Half of the world is here. So I should say India should integrate, and it's not going to only benefit India, but also it's going to benefit the whole entire region. So Indian export and Indian, it's exchange of goods would be beneficial for all countries, for the whole region. And when it comes to what are the issues, what is happening maybe what is the Indian policy towards CPEC. Again, India has two issues here. One is the China containment, and number two is settling its score with Pakistan. So Pakistan and India are always again, like, I mean, I don't know why these two countries will never sit together. Well, what is the issue? I mean, there is an issue, of course, there are issues, but then every issue or every conflict can be sorted out. But they are busy in developing their arsenals, they are busy in developing their big armies. I mean, it's me, the IR student, I don't know what to say to them. I cannot advise them. I wish I can advise them. But India has its source to settle with Pakistan. And that's when it has happened in 71. And as I've said, and it's not that I'm saying or alleging, it's very much common. It's in public domain that Prime Minister Modi has not once, not twice, but quite a number of times he has threatened Pakistan with independence or having this state, a separate state of Balochistan, which is not, of course, possible. We should not be encouraged. Why should it be encouraged? But then, if you want to talk about Balochistan, I can speak for hours. That's my PhD thesis. So I can't simply go into it in detail. But then the whole issue with Balochistan, it's not the entire Balochistan, it's just the southern tip of it, which is where the contention arises, where the separatism is there. So it was previously the Kalat agency. So I mean, it will take some time to speak on it. But then the arrest of Kulbhushan Yadav, who has openly confessed that he was mandated or he was missioned or commissioned for this project. And when I was doing this research, Kulbhushan Yadav was the second serving officer after one Russian guy who was being apprehended in America, who was also a serving officer in Russian military. That was at that time it was Soviet. So in the history of entire world, the serving officer going into some mission in other countries, that was a open, you can say, violation of international rules. And then I don't know, I mean, why it shouldn't be. World is like I don't know, I mean, why people just want war and conflicts. I mean, if it is me, I will not go for it. But then India doesn't want Pakistan to emerge, or why it's the case. This is $1 million question. I don't know. But then the basic thing is to contain China, and then the animosity with Pakistan is always there since day one, since 47. It's not a new thing to know. So Pakistan came into being. India was always there. So Pakistan was the new country. So Pakistan has the reactive policies. It was never that. I mean, if somebody says that Pakistan was the one who has animosity against India, I would refute that argument, because Pakistan was the one created. India was always there. So Pakistan's policies was in a reaction to India's policy. It was not other way around. So whatever has done since day one, since 14th August 1947, there is a series of issues and conflicts. And then secession of, Bangladesh was 1,000 miles away, and it was not possible to administer that area. I mean, if it is logically speaking, it's the case. But then the role of India cannot be refuted, and even the Western researchers have now openly written, like books are there, like there's so many publications. It's not that Pakistani person is saying this. You can, anyone, like you just read too much. It's too much there in the public domain that what has happened there. And it's not only Bangladesh which was being on Pakistan. And I always give this example that if I'm a 25-year-old kid, or not kid, like 25-year-old, my decision making or my dealing with of the issues would be different than a person of 200-year-old or maybe 70-year-old. So Pakistan was just 25-year-old state, new state with all these myriad of issues. So how could you expect that young nation, a very young nation, to have this control of the issues where the economy was not very strong, and then there was no supporting country, and then India's size, its economic size, and then the political stability there. So Pakistan is still struggling since day one, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it takes years and rather it takes centuries to evolve. Europe has not evolved in a day. So is the case with Britain. Like if we study the British history, it was not that civilized what it is today. It took centuries to become this thing, and so is the case with Pakistan. Pakistan inshallah, it will be okay. It will be okay.
Thank you. Here's a question from our patron, Dr. Qureshi. It's a very direct question. How does China view the new Pakistani government compared with the old? And has that had any impact at all on the relationship between present relationship, or existing relationship, I should say, not present, between China and Pakistan?
A few moments ago, I just said that China is quiet and there's no reaction as of now yet seen, but I fear that China will not be happy if we are tilting towards West. That's not my fear, it's everybody's assessment that, of course, China has invested too much and China has been with Pakistan since day one. There was never a gap between Pakistan and China relationship. It was always military relationship, a strategic relationship. I mean, this was the first time after 2013 that it transformed into economic also. So the new development, which is clearly, or which is allegedly, I should say, I shouldn't say clearly, which it is that there is an American involvement there, and the former Prime Minister is vehemently stating that it's American intervention there, and because of that American intervention, American, you can say, pressure, the whole regime was changed. So, any Insaf, who's part of Pakistan Tehreek Insaf Party would be saying that, but China's reaction is still awaited, and I fear it will not be a good one if this policy continues. Let's see. Everything is so blurry, so fluid. We can't comment right now. So that's why I told you, like, my presentation was different, what I actually made, but then considering the last 3-4 weeks developments, I had to change it.
Here's a technical question from Hugh Sanderman, who runs our Global Strategies program. How transparent is Pakistan's reporting of its loans from China? Is the data shared with the public, with the IMF? And if you don't think it is as transparent as perhaps it should be, has this had any impact on the approach of other lenders and donors?
As I stated earlier, I'm not an economist, but yes, I have studied this very question or this very topic. Pakistan do not owe China much as compared to the international organizations, as I stated earlier. And I discussed this issue with one of economists who has command on all these issues prior coming here, and he was also telling me that China, we do not owe China this much. It's $62 billion. Everybody knows that the investment as of now is $62 billion. So Pakistan's debt, like, it's a very, you can say, quick riddle to resolve, that 62 billion. So, okay, if we even owe $62 billion, we do not. But then if we owe $62 billion, Pakistan debt is not $62 billion, it's much more than that. So yeah, that's the quick answer to this.
Okay. Question about Afghanistan, events in Afghanistan and Taliban in particular. Does this have any importance in the future of the corridor events just across the border? And can I link it with a question on Baluchistan? Because this is an issue that is not generally known in the West. I know very little about it myself. Could you say something a little bit more about the insurgency, the movement there, and what you think the future trajectory is going to be? And could you connect that with Pakistan's relationship with Iran? Because obviously what's happening in Baluchistan does impact on Iran's relations with Pakistan to some extent.
Okay, let me just quickly tell you something. I'm working on a paper, and it's a very interesting one. I'll share it with you. Balochistan is not only in Pakistan. So there are three parts of Balochistan, one in Iran, one in Pakistan, and one in Afghanistan. And that trifurcation, that's the word terminology being given by Foreign Policy Office of Britain Foreign Policy Office, that trifurcation of that area was being done during colonial rule. So when British government was here, so there, this part of the subcontinent or South Asia was never a developed area. It was always a very desolated area. So if you read through the history, Balochistan was never a developed area. The entire Balochistan, including the part in Afghanistan and Iraq. So what happened that to contain Soviet, I mean, the players have changed. It was earlier Britain and the Soviets, and then afterwards it was America and the Soviets, and now it's China and America. So the whole position, the whole location is the same, but the players have changed. So to contain Soviets incursion or ingress towards this side from to the southern tip, what happened? That there was it was like a confederation that area. So whoever the ruler was at that time was Khan of Gwadar. The British government had an agreement to provide them with a safe passage to the Iranian and Afghanistan border. So the issue arises from there. So when they were going there, because of the tribal structure of the whole that area, and it's not Baloch, the Balochistan is not only Baloch inhabitant area, it's the Pashtun. The half of it, the Balochistan which we have in Pakistan, the northern side is all Pashtun area. So the southern part is Balochistan and Brahui. It's not, I mean, it's a very, I should say that it's a common notion in entire world that Balochistan is all Baloch land. It's not. It's not. At least in Pakistan, half of them, more than half of the upper part, the northern part is Pashtun. And the lower part, the southern part, which is where the Gwadar port is, it's the Baloch or Brahui inhabitant area. So when British troops were going from there, okay. So when the British troops were going from there, the tribal, the local people, the natives, they attacked the British troops in 19th century. So that confrontation or that small, you can say skirmish, that ended up in division of that area into three areas. One went with Iran and one went with Afghanistan, and one was with that British India, which later on became the part of Pakistan. So that insurgency was not in the entire Balochistan, and it's not insurgency. I mean, I have proven this in my thesis, so I won't use this word insurgency. I will always use the word militancy. So the militancy was not in the entire Balochistan. For the separatist militancy, it was in the southern tip, the Khalat agency, and Pakistan has not annexed Balochistan. And it's very much in the British, I mean, this is the statement I'm taking from the British document. It's not that I'm taking it from myself or from some Pakistani author. So it was not annexed. I mean, in the Khan of Kalat's autobiography, he has stated that he signed the accession treaty with Pakistan. But now coming back to what Afghanistan or Taliban are going to do, like let the West handle Taliban in a better way. Let them unfreeze their funds. I'm not a Taliban person. I just want a peaceful Afghanistan. That's it, regardless whoever is there. And the basic issue, what has happened now in Pakistan is basically they were asking, America was asking surveillance from Pakistan or the bases, which was a famous interview in HBO that when Imran Khan was being asked if US wants some drone, like bases to provide to do this drone attacks or to surveil for the surveillance or to monitor Afghanistan, and that's absolutely no terminology just coined from there. So, and I have written much before this interview. I have written on it. And it's American military-industrial complex who will find another way to go and to find something where they can invest. If it is not the war, they can go for the surveillance. So the whole thing is more of a corporate here, military industrial complex, which is actually finding new avenues to execute or to, you can say, to practice their whatever they are doing or inventing or discovering. So it's a bad game. I don't think that Taliban should not come. As I've said, India should integrate, and if let it be completed first. Now let this happen now, because as of now, if the current government continues and if the current policy continues, clearly we can see a discrete shift towards West. If it is going to happen, I don't know what will be the fate of CPEC. It's going to be a far cry. Of course, China. Now, here is the role of China. I as an international relations student, I don't think China will let it go so quickly and so swiftly and so smoothly. There will be something. So that's why I see more conflicts in the region.
You started your talk by showing us some maps and how critical geostrategically, to use another geo term, the Indian Ocean has become. In fact, many people think that the Indian Ocean is the strategic ocean for the next couple of decades. Where do you put this, your presentation, in the context of the Indo-Pacific theater as understood by those countries that use that term, the United States, Australia, to some extent Japan, even now South Korea, and the growing relationship between Iran, China, and Russia? They've held naval exercises in the Gulf a couple of months ago. Do you think Pakistan is likely to get sucked into this geostrategic vortex without necessarily being a demandeur, an independent agent? Or do you think that Pakistan can handle the situation perfectly well? I know you have a good insight into Australian thinking about this as well. So if you'd like to add anything about the Western powers in the Indo-Pacific here and how they regard the economic corridor and the close relationship between Pakistan and China, we'd be interested to hear your views.
Well, let's not be taken as a good thing. If I'm sitting in China, Australia, China is the bone of contention. For Australia, Pakistan doesn't matter. It's the China thing. For Japan, also Pakistan doesn't matter. It's not only for India, China, Pakistan does matter. For the West, Pakistan does matter being a nuclear state. But when it comes to the actual, you can say, power distribution, the major issue is China. It's not Pakistan. Pakistan stands nowhere. Like given the size of the economy, Pakistan, that's the quadrilateral. When I have discussed this, like the Quad is the quadrilateral partners, like in India, America, Japan, and Australia. But there is a quadrilateral relationship between India, amongst America, China, India, and Pakistan in this region, which is actually very conflictual and competing because there are two groups. So in terms of Pakistan, I don't think Pakistan, being Pakistani, I want Pakistan to have an independent foreign policy. And had it been the case, this shouldn't have happened, which has happened right now in Pakistan. It's like more of, it's that something has happened and something has forced, some unseen force was there, and suddenly the whole thing changed. Like, and I felt it so embarrassing, to be very honest. Like while I have been in Australia for so long and in other countries, and you are in Britain. There are protocols. There are protocols which we always follow when we talk or when we negotiate and or when we are dealing with states. But it was not seen in Pakistan. And in this current situation, what has happened there, it was being dictated. And I won't blame the dictators. I would rather blame the one who were being dictated. Why they were being dictated? Why they couldn't stand the pressure? They should have. So when we are talking about the independent policy, I want, being Pakistani, being a independent, being a citizen of a sovereign state, I want an independent policy. But it's not only with Pakistan; it's with all smaller countries. They tend to, or maybe they are forced to incline or tilt towards a major power because of their economic issues and their strategic issues. Because otherwise they'll be crushed. Like if you see. Pakistan cannot confront America. To be very realistic, Pakistan cannot. So if Dick Cheney says that will turn you into a stone age, they could have done it. Although they couldn't have, they shouldn't have done it, but they could have done it. What they have done with Iraq. Like I've been to Iraq before this 2001, this Iraq invasion, and I was living in Kuwait at the time. And Iraq was a very modern state, and it just came out of the Iran-Iraq conflict, 11-year conflict, where Iraq was standing with America, and it was actually fighting American war there. But then suddenly the rule of games changed, and so that's why when I was very crude when I was using this term for American policy. It's always the use, misuse, and abuse. So it has been like in my lifetime, I have seen this happening in Pakistan. I have seen this happening in Iraq as well, because these were the two countries that I had lived. And I have seen them, like they were being used in American wars, and they were just being abandoned. And what is happening in Iraq, God forbid it will not happen. I really pray. I mean, it's not being only Pakistani, but as any international citizen, I don't want any conflict in such kind of conflict where there's sectarianism or there's just conflicts there, there's just war there. I don't want it to happen. But to have an independent policy, I really doubt in the given circumstances when Pakistan is like in heavy financial burden. And it's not, the burden is not because of Pakistan has borrowed too much, because of the corruption, because of the mismanagement, because of the bad governance, delayed decision making, because the delayed decision making always accrues so much expense and so much expenditure. And being part of 20 years in the service, I've seen this, I've seen it, and it has happened. I should confess and acknowledge at the international platform, I'm not stating that people of Pakistan should be blamed for it. No, people of Pakistan, they're very hardworking. They want to do something, but we can't do anything. Like I can just simply say to you, what will happen then? That thing will go, and that moment will go. It will not. Will it impact or will it affect the policymakers? If it will, then it will be very great. It will be good.
So my last question, I suppose, is: are you more an optimist or a pessimist for the future? If you had to make some predictions, I'm not asking you for specific predictions, but are you optimistic or pessimistic? Because in my part of the world, we're certainly very pessimistic at the moment. But perhaps you see a brighter future in your part of the world.
I'll sit in your boat.
Sorry?
I'll sit in your boat. I'm not very optimistic, but I really pray. I mean, while Pakistan was doing with this CPEC, and I hope it will continue. If it continues, and if it is completed only not 100%, even 40 to 50%. Being Pakistani, I want to say, and I must say, and I should say that Pakistan is bound to rise. Like there is every potential there. People are talented, and you have seen in Britain, like they outperform. They do wonders with all many obstacles, with all many. You can say hurdles, and with all many difficulties, they do perform. They come out of all the crises, but then it's not the people of Pakistan who are going to be on the front or on the face of when it comes to international relationships. It's a state-to-state relationship. So I don't know why the state structure is going to stand. If the current government continues, I really have no idea what will happen. So. I'm not pessimistic, I must say, but I'm not very hopeful at the moment. If there is an election, and if there is a government from the, you can say, people's mandate, whatever, whoever, then they'll be having a strong, you can say, they would have that confidence to decide. And when there it comes for independent policy. What is happening in India, because Modi has come there with a clear majority. So whatever he decides is accepted and acknowledged and actually acted upon. But in case of Pakistan, if it is, or any other country, even in Australia, like I was watching this election thing, and it's still, there is no clear majority. So when you do not have the clear majority in the democratic system, then the decision making is always influenced by some other factors. be it the internal factors or external factors. In case of Pakistan, states like Pakistan, which have heavy financial issues, it's always external factors.
Well, thank you very much. We've run out of time. Thank you very much, Seema, for a very enlightening and very comprehensive talk, which our viewers will be able to read in due course. We will be publishing this, and it will appear on our website, as do all our other publications. And we hope it'll appear in the next few months. It only remains for me to thank Dr. Qureshi, who has been looking at this and participating. And thank you very much for your generosity in funding the fellowship. Thank you to our speaker. Thank you to the audience for attending and asking questions. I'd just like to say, I think we've had a really good talk. Thank you, Seema, again, for coming along and sharing your views. And on that note, I will bid you goodbye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.